Donald John Trump's story begins not in the political arenas of Washington, D.C., but in the bustling, competitive borough of Queens, New York City. Born on June 14, 1946, he was the fourth of five children of Frederick Christ Fred Trump and Mary Ann McLeod Trump. His father, Fred Trump, was a successful real estate developer who built a business focused on constructing and renting out middle-class apartments in Brooklyn and Queens. From an early age, Donald was immersed in a world of construction sites, property deals, and a family ethos that valued ambition, toughness, and the relentless pursuit of success. The Trump household was prosperous but strict. Fred Trump was a demanding figure who believed in discipline and resilience. Young Donald was sent to the New York Military Academy at age 13, a decision aimed at curbing his rebellious energy and instilling discipline. There, he thrived, rising to become a captain and developing a taste for leadership and recognition. After graduating, he attended Fordham University before transferring to the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania, from which he graduated in 1968 with a degree in economics. Wharton, one of the nation's most prestigious business schools, provided him with academic credentials, but his real education had already happened at his father's side. He joined the family business, the Trump Organization, in 1968. While Fred Trump's domain was the outer boroughs, Donald's eyes were fixed on Manhattan, the glittering epicenter of wealth, power, and prestige. This ambition created some tension, but also defined his path. His first major Manhattan project was the revitalization of the Commodore Hotel, a dilapidated property next to Grand Central Terminal. In a deal that showcased his early knack for leveraging political connections and tax abatements, he partnered with the Hyatt Hotel Corporation and secured significant tax breaks from the city. The renovated Grand Hyatt Hotel opened in 1980 and was a commercial success, putting Donald Trump on the map as a bold new force in New York real estate. The 1980s became the decade of the Donald. Buoyed by a booming economy and his own growing confidence, he embarked on a series of audacious projects that married real estate with his burgeoning persona. He built the iconic Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue in 1983, a 58-story bronze-glassed skyscraper that became the headquarters of his empire and a symbol of opulent 1980s excess. He purchased and renovated the Woolman Rink in Central Park, completing a long-stalled city project efficiently and under budget, which he leveraged for tremendous positive publicity. He acquired casinos in Atlantic City, naming them the Trump Plaza, Trump Castle, and later the gargantuan Trump Taj Mahal, which he billed as the eighth wonder of the world. He bought the Plaza Hotel in New York, a crown jewel of luxury. He owned a football team, the New Jersey Generals of the short-lived USFL, and a luxury airline, the Trump Shuttle. His personal brand became inseparable from his business. He cultivated an image of the ultimate success story, the brash, deal-making billionaire with the glamorous wife, his first marriage to Czech model Ivana Zelničková, the golden apartments, and the private plane. He authored the best-selling book, The Art of the Deal, in 1987, which codified his personal mythology and business philosophy for the public. The media ate it up. He became a regular tabloid fixture, his name synonymous with wealth and extravagance. However, the high-flying 80s gave way to a disastrous early 1990s. The real estate market crashed, and Atlantic City's casino industry struggled. The Trump Organization was drowning in debt, reportedly nearly $1 billion in the red. Several of his casinos filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. Many analysts predicted his total collapse. This period was a defining crucible. Trump negotiated with banks, restructured his debt, and managed to hold on to key assets by giving up equity. He survived, but his business empire was significantly scaled back. The experience left him with a lasting skepticism of traditional financial institutions and a belief in the power of aggressive negotiation and comeback narratives. The late 1990s and 2000s saw a reinvention. While still involved in real estate, Trump increasingly became a media and entertainment brand. He launched the Miss Universe pageant, produced lines of fragrances, steaks, and bottled water, and most significantly, became the producer and star of the NBC reality television show The Apprentice in 2004. The show's format was simple but powerful. Contestants competed in business tasks for a chance to work for Trump. His catchphrase, "You're fired," became a national pop culture staple. The Apprentice was a ratings juggernaut for over a decade. It repackaged Donald Trump for a new generation, not as a struggling mogul, but as the ultimate no-nonsense business authority, a savvy, decisive boss who could spot success or failure with a single glance. The show solidified his image as a titan of business in the public consciousness, papering over the more complex realities of his financial ups and downs. During these decades, he also dabbled in politics, often as a provocateur. He floated runs for president in 1988, 2000, and 2004, often switching party affiliations, Republican, Reform Party, Democrat, and generating media buzz with controversial statements. He was a vocal proponent of the birther conspiracy theory in the early 2010s, falsely questioning President Obama's birthplace. These forays kept his name in the political conversation and tested themes that would later resonate with a segment of the electorate: anti-establishment sentiment, nationalism, and a media-savvy approach to controversy. By 2015, Donald Trump was a household name, a reality TV star, a celebrity businessman, and a political sideshow. Few in the political establishment took his presidential aspirations seriously when he descended the golden escalator at Trump Tower on June 16, 2015, to announce his candidacy for the Republican nomination. He entered a crowded field of experienced governors and senators. His announcement speech, in which he declared, "I will build a great, great wall on our southern border," and described Mexican immigrants in derogatory terms, was shocking and dismissed by many as a publicity stunt. But it immediately tapped into a powerful vein of populist discontent. What followed was one of the most improbable and disruptive political journeys in American history.
The 2016 presidential campaign of Donald J. Trump defied every established rule of American politics. He was a political novice with no prior electoral experience, a celebrity known for ostentatious wealth and televised firings. The Republican Party establishment viewed him with a mixture of amusement and horror. Yet, from the moment his campaign began, he commanded a media dominance that none of his 16 Republican primary opponents could match. His strategy was not built on traditional policy white papers or extensive ground operations. It was built on relentless media amplification, populist rhetoric, and a direct, unfiltered connection with a segment of the electorate that felt ignored and disdained by the political class. Trump's core message was America first. He railed against free trade deals like NAFTA, which he argued had shipped American jobs overseas. He promised to bring back manufacturing and coal mining jobs. He vowed to build a wall on the U.S.-Mexico border and have Mexico pay for it, framing illegal immigration as an existential threat to American security and workers. He spoke of draining the swamp in Washington, D.C., a powerful metaphor for rooting out corruption and ending the influence of lobbyists and career politicians. His language was simple, repetitive, and often deliberately provocative. He used Twitter not as a side channel, but as his primary megaphone, bypassing traditional media to speak directly to millions. This approach electrified a significant portion of the Republican base, but horrified party elites. He attacked his opponents with nicknames that stuck in the public consciousness: Low Energy Jeb, Lion Ted, Little Marco. The Republican primary debates became must-watch television, dominated by Trump's combative style. While political pundits repeatedly predicted his campaign would collapse under the weight of a new controversy, his comments about John McCain's war record, his feuds with the Gold Star family, the release of the Access Hollywood tape in which he made lewd comments about women, his support among his base remained remarkably resilient. They saw in him a fighter who was not afraid to say what they were thinking, a billionaire who was nonetheless an outsider attacking a rigged system. One by one, his establishment rivals fell. On May 3, 2016, with a victory in the Indiana primary, he became the presumptive Republican nominee. The general election against Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton was one of the most bitter and divisive in modern history. Trump framed Clinton as the ultimate Washington insider, corrupt and part of the very swamp he promised to drain. He led chants of "lock her up" at his rallies, referencing an investigation into her use of a private email server while Secretary of State. The Clinton campaign and much of the media focused on Trump's lack of experience, his temperament, and his past statements and behavior, characterizing him as fundamentally unfit for office. The polls consistently showed Clinton ahead. Almost every major newspaper, political analyst, and forecasting model predicted her victory. On election night, November 8, 2016, these predictions were shattered. Donald Trump won a stunning victory in the Electoral College, securing 306 electoral votes by narrowly flipping key Midwestern blue wall states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin that had voted Democratic for decades. His message had resonated powerfully in the nation's industrial heartland. Voter turnout patterns, economic anxiety, and a deep cultural antipathy to the political status quo combined to produce one of the greatest political upsets in history. Donald Trump was elected the 45th president of the United States. His presidency, which began on January 20th, 2017, was from the outset a period of unprecedented tumult and permanent campaign mode. His inauguration was marked by disputes over crowd size, a theme that would come to symbolize his obsession with media portrayal and personal legitimacy. His governing style was disruptive and confrontational. He surrounded himself with family members and a mix of establishment figures and ideological allies, with turnover in key positions like chief of staff and national security advisor becoming remarkably frequent. His administration delivered on several key campaign promises, often through executive action. He appointed 3 conservative justices to the Supreme Court, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett, solidifying a conservative majority, a legacy that will influence American law for a generation. He signed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, a major overhaul of the tax code that significantly reduced corporate tax rates. He pursued deregulation across various industries, particularly energy and finance. He moved the U.S. Embassy in Israel to Jerusalem, a long-sought goal of pro-Israel advocates. He withdrew the U.S. from the Trans-Pacific Trade Deal, the Paris Climate Agreement, and the Iran nuclear deal, fulfilling America First pledges. However, his tenure was dominated by constant controversy and investigation. The Russia investigation, led by special counsel Mueller, probed links between the Trump campaign and Russian interference in the 2016 election. While the Mueller report did not establish a criminal conspiracy, it detailed numerous contacts and did not exonerate the president on obstruction of justice. The investigation cast a long shadow over the first half of his term. His relationship with the media was a daily war. He routinely labeled critical reporting as fake news and referred to the press as the enemy of the people. His rallies continued to be a central feature of his presidency, serving as a direct channel to his base and a source of energy. His use of Twitter was relentless and often the source of policy announcements, personal feuds, and inflammatory statements that would dominate news cycles. Foreign policy under Trump was marked by a unilateral and transactional approach. He engaged in high-stakes personal diplomacy with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, a dramatic shift from previous policy, though it yielded few concrete results on denuclearization. He launched a trade war with China, imposing tariffs in an attempt to rectify what he saw as unfair trade practices. He questioned the value of long-standing alliances like NATO, demanding other members increase defense spending. Domestically, his rhetoric and policies on immigration were central to his presidency. His administration implemented a zero-tolerance policy that led to the separation of migrant families at the southern border, causing a national outcry. The effort to build the wall faced constant legal, logistical, and congressional hurdles, with only partial funding secured and limited new wall construction completed. The end of his term was defined by the COVID-19 pandemic. His administration's response was chaotic and politicized. He clashed publicly with scientific advisors, promoted unproven treatments, and framed public health measures like mask wearing as a political choice rather than a medical necessity. The economic fallout from the pandemic was severe, and the approval of vaccines developed under Operation Warp Speed became a major achievement, though vaccination efforts later became entangled in the nation's culture wars. As the 2020 election approached, the country was deeply polarized. His campaign against former Vice President Joe Biden was fought amidst the pandemic, a summer of racial justice protests, and an economic crisis. On November 3, 2020, Joe Biden was declared the winner, securing both the popular vote and a clear electoral college margin. What followed was the most destabilizing chapter of Trump's political life. His refusal to concede and his persistent, baseless claims that the election had been stolen through widespread fraud.
The period between the November 2020 election and Joe Biden's inauguration on January 20th, 2021, was a constitutional stress test unlike any other in modern American history. Despite dozens of court cases failing due to lack of evidence and state officials from both parties certifying the results, Donald Trump steadfastly refused to acknowledge his defeat. He propagated the big lie, the false claim that the election was rigged, which resonated deeply with his core supporters and created a powerful alternative reality within a significant segment of the Republican Party. This campaign to overturn the election reached its crescendo on January 6, 2021. As Congress convened in a joint session to formally certify the Electoral College results, Trump held a rally near the White House called the Save America March. There, he repeated his claims of a stolen election and told the crowd, "If you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore." He urged them to march to the Capitol. What followed was a violent insurrection. A mob of his supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol building, breaching security, vandalizing offices, and forcing lawmakers and Vice President Mike Pence to flee for their lives. The certification process was halted for hours. 5 people died in connection with the attack, and over 140 police officers were injured. The world watched in shock. For many, the images of a violent mob desecrating the seat of American democracy, fueled by the sitting president's rhetoric, marked a point of no return. Later that evening, after the Capitol was secured, Congress reconvened and certified Joe Biden's victory. On January 13, 2021, the House of Representatives impeached Donald Trump for a second time, charging him with incitement of insurrection. He became the only president in U.S. history to be impeached twice. The subsequent Senate trial began after he had left office, and while a majority of senators voted to convict, 57 to 43, it fell short of the 2/3 majority required. He was acquitted. Trump left Washington on the morning of January 20, 2021, breaking tradition by refusing to attend his successor's inauguration. He flew to his Mar-a-Lago resort in Palm Beach, Florida, which became the de facto headquarters of a shadow presidency. Politically winded but far from dormant, he began plotting his next act almost immediately. He retained an iron grip on the Republican Party. Most elected Republicans, fearing his influence on the primary voting base, remained loyal or silent. He used his platform to endorse candidates in the 2022 midterm elections, often choosing those who echoed his election fraud claims. His endorsements became a decisive force in GOP primaries, demonstrating his continued dominance. His post-presidency has been a whirlwind of legal battles, political activity, and media ventures. He is the subject of multiple, unprecedented criminal and civil investigations. In New York, the state attorney general filed a massive civil fraud lawsuit against him.
his adult children, and the Trump Organization, alleging a decade-long pattern of fraudulently inflating asset values to secure loans and tax benefits. A judge has already ruled that Trump committed fraud, and the case could result in hundreds of millions in penalties and restrictions on doing business in the state. Separately, the Manhattan District Attorney secured an indictment and later a conviction on 34 felony counts of falsifying business records related to hush money payments to adult film actress Stormy Daniels before the 2016 election, making Donald Trump the first former U.S. president to be convicted of a felony. In Georgia, a district attorney in Fulton County indicted Trump and 18 allies on racketeering charges for their efforts to overturn the 2020 election results in that state. At the federal level, a special counsel appointed by the Department of Justice indicted him on charges related to his mishandling of classified documents after leaving the White House and his efforts to obstruct their retrieval. He was also indicted on federal charges for his actions leading up to the January 6th insurrection. He has pled not guilty to all charges, framing every investigation as a witch hunt and political persecution designed to stop him from running again. Amid this legal maelstrom, he announced his candidacy for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination in November 2022. Despite the unprecedented baggage of multiple indictments, he quickly reestablished himself as the overwhelming frontrunner. His campaign rallies continue to draw large crowds, and his message remains largely unchanged. A mix of grievance, nostalgia for his presidency, attacks on the deep state, and promises to exact retribution on his political enemies. He has vowed, if re-elected, to pardon the January 6th rioters and to wield executive power in a more aggressive, partisan manner. His influence on American culture and media remains profound. After being banned from Twitter and Facebook in the wake of January 6th, he launched his own social media platform Truth Social in 2022. While its user base is a fraction of mainstream platforms, it serves as his primary, unfiltered communication channel to his supporters. He remains a constant, dominant presence on cable news, which dissects his every statement and legal filing. The business empire that formed the original foundation of his celebrity has faced significant challenges. The Trump Organization's brand has become deeply polarizing. Major banks and business partners have distanced themselves. His properties, like Mar-a-Lago and his golf clubs, have become political hubs and sites of legal scrutiny. FBI agents executed a search warrant at Mar-a-Lago in 2022 to retrieve classified documents. The company's financial future is intertwined with the outcomes of his various legal cases. Through it all, Donald Trump's connection with his base appears unshaken. Polls show that a majority of Republican voters believe the 2020 election was stolen, see the indictments as politically motivated, and support his 2024 run. To them, he is still the outsider warrior, fighting a corrupt system on their behalf. To his detractors, he is a unique threat to democratic norms, the rule of law, and the stability of the republic. As he campaigns from courtroom to rally stage, the 2024 election is shaping up to be a historic rematch against President Joe Biden. It is a contest that will not only decide the country's political direction for the next 4 years, but may also serve as a final verdict on the turbulent, disruptive, and transformative era that Donald Trump has personified. Whether he returns to the White House or not, his impact on the Republican Party, the media landscape, and the very conduct of American politics is indelible. He shattered conventions, exposed deep societal fractures, and demonstrated that a figure from the outside the political system could not only capture its highest office, but also reshape it in his own image, for better or worse.
To understand the phenomenon of Donald Trump, one must look beyond the policies and the headlines and examine the persona, the communication strategies, and the psychological underpinnings that have made him one of the most consequential and controversial figures of the 21st century. His success, both in business and politics, is not merely a product of circumstance. It is the result of a carefully cultivated, instinct-driven approach to projecting power, commanding attention, and connecting with an audience. The art of branding, Trump as a symbol.
Long before he entered politics, Donald Trump mastered the art of personal branding. He understood that perception could be as valuable as reality. The Trump name became a synonym for luxury, success, and audacity. He plastered it on skyscrapers, casinos, steaks, bottled water, and universities. This strategy, often dismissed as mere vanity, was a calculated business move. It created an aura of inevitability and grandeur. In politics, he transferred this skill perfectly. Make America Great Again, MAGA, was more than a slogan. It was a brand that evoked nostalgia, promised restoration, and created a powerful tribal identity for his supporters. The red Make America Great Again hat became one of the most potent political symbols in decades, a billboard for a worldview. Communication, the Twitter presidency, and beyond. Trump's communication style revolutionized political discourse. He rejected the cautious, poll-tested language of traditional politicians. His speech was simple, repetitive, and emotionally charged. He used hyperbole, the greatest, the worst, a disaster, as a standard vocabulary. This made his messages instantly clear and memorable to supporters and infuriating to opponents. His preferred medium was Twitter, now Truth Social. For him, social media was the ultimate disruptive tool. It allowed him to set the daily news agenda, attack critics directly, rally his base, and bypass the filter of the mainstream media he constantly derided as fake news. His tweets were often offensive, factually dubious, or deliberately provocative, but they guaranteed he was the center of attention, a commodity he values above all else. Showmanship and the politics of spectacle. From the gilded escalator descent to the massive airport rallies, Trump's politics were always performative. He is a natural showman who understands television and crowd dynamics. His rallies were not just political events, they were immersive experiences, part revival meeting, part rock concert, part grievance airing session. The chants like "lock her up" and "build the wall," the attacks on the media, the enemy of the people, and the lengthy, freewheeling speeches created a powerful sense of community and shared purpose among attendees. He fed off the crowd's energy, and they fed off his defiance. This politics of spectacle made his movement feel dynamic and powerful, contrasting with the often scripted, sterile events of his opponents. The America First worldview and populist instincts. Trump's political ideology is difficult to categorize in traditional left-right terms. It is best understood as a form of nationalist populism. The core tenets are a deep skepticism of international alliances and trade deals, viewed as ripping off America, a belief in border security and immigration restriction as paramount to national identity, a disdain for political and cultural elites, the swamp, and an America First focus on domestic interests. He intuitively tapped into anxieties about globalization, cultural change, and economic displacement that were felt by many Americans, but were often unaddressed by the political establishment. He framed complex issues in us versus them terms, identifying clear enemies, China, illegal immigrants, the radical left, and presenting himself as the sole strongman who could defeat them. Management style. Chaos and loyalty. His management style, evident both in his business and White House years, is famously chaotic and non-hierarchical. He encouraged rivalry among top aides, often making contradictory statements or policy declarations, and valued personal loyalty above experience or expertise. This created constant turmoil, leaks, and high staff turnover. Proponents argued it kept bureaucrats and advisors off balance and prevented the rise of a powerful chief of staff who could control him. Critics saw it as a recipe for dysfunction, instability, and poor decision-making.
This style extended to his relationship with institutions. He often attacked the deep state, the permanent government bureaucracy, the FBI, the judiciary, and even his own military leaders when he felt they were insufficiently loyal. Resilience and the comeback narrative. A key part of the Trump myth is resilience. The near collapse of his empire in the early 1990s, the multiple corporate bankruptcies, the Access Hollywood tape, 2 impeachments, and now multiple indictments. Each event was framed by him and his supporters not as a failure, but as evidence of a warrior under relentless, unfair attack. He has an uncanny ability to deflect scandal by creating a new one, to reframe losses as moral victories, and to portray any investigation as persecution. This narrative of fighting a corrupt system against all odds is central to his appeal. He is the ultimate political outsider, even after 4 years in the Oval Office. The family dynamics. The Trump family has been integral to his operations. His children, Donald Jr., Ivanka, and Eric, have been senior executives in the Trump organization and played formal and informal roles in his administration. His son-in-law, Jared Kushner, was a senior White House advisor with a sprawling portfolio. This nepotism blurred the lines between family business, personal interest, and statecraft, leading to ethics concerns, but also ensuring a tight circle of ultimate loyalty. The family presents a unified front, often appearing together at major events, reinforcing the image of a dynastic brand. Legacy of division. Perhaps Donald Trump's most undeniable impact is the deepening of societal and political polarization in the United States. His presidency was a period of sustained cultural conflict. Debates over race, immigration, gender, and history became more acute and personally charged. Trust in institutions, the media, the electoral process, the justice system declined dramatically, with perceptions splitting sharply along partisan lines. He proved that a politics rooted in grievance and identity could be enormously powerful, reshaping the Republican Party in his image and forcing the entire political system to react to his presence. In summary, Donald Trump is a complex amalgam of salesman, entertainer, bruiser, and instinctual politician. His methods, the branding, the disruptive communication, the populist spectacle, the cultivation of a loyal base through shared grievance, have left an indelible mark on American life. Whether admired or reviled, he is a figure who commands attention, defies prediction, and forces a reckoning with fundamental questions about leadership, truth, and the future of democracy. His story is far from over, and its final chapters will be written not just in courtrooms and on campaign trails, but in the long-term trajectory of the nation he sought to make great again.
As the 2024 United States presidential election approaches, Donald Trump's campaign is unlike any other in American history. He is simultaneously the presumptive Republican nominee and a defendant in multiple felony criminal trials. This surreal duality defines the current chapter of his life, a period where court dates and rally schedules are plotted on the same calendar, and legal arguments bleed directly into campaign rhetoric. The outcome of this unprecedented clash between the judicial system and electoral politics will shape not only his personal fate, but also the nation's democratic norms. The frontrunner under indictment. Despite, or perhaps because of, the cascade of legal charges, Trump's grip on the Republican base has tightened. His message to supporters is consistent and powerful. I am being persecuted for you. They are not after me. They are after you. I am just standing in their way. This framing transforms his legal jeopardy from a personal liability into a collective political grievance, a potent rallying cry. He has used the indictments to raise massive campaign funds, often blasting out fundraising emails within minutes of a new development. In the Republican primaries, his opponents struggled to challenge him effectively.
Criticizing the legal cases risked alienating the base that believed Trump's persecution narrative, while focusing on other issues failed to dent his lead. One by one, his rivals dropped out, and by early 2024, he had secured the nomination for a third consecutive time. The four major legal fronts. Trump's legal battles are being waged on four distinct fronts, each with its own timeline and potential consequences. The New York hush money case, the people of the state of New York versus Donald J. Trump. This was the first criminal case to go to trial. Prosecutors alleged that before the 2016 election, Trump falsified business records to conceal hush money payments to adult film actress Stormy Daniels, thereby committing election fraud. The trial, marked by salacious testimony and intense media scrutiny, resulted in a historic verdict on May 30th, 2024. Guilty on all 34 felony counts. The sentencing is pending, with possibilities ranging from probation to prison time. An appeal is certain. Politically, the conviction energized both his base, who saw it as a travesty, and his opponents, who saw it as overdue accountability. The federal classified documents case, United States versus Donald J. Trump. This case, stemming from the discovery of hundreds of classified documents at Mar-a-Lago after he left office, charges Trump with willful retention of national defense information and conspiracy to obstruct justice. The charges are among the most serious, carrying the potential for significant prison time under the Espionage Act. The trial has been mired in procedural delays and disputes over classified evidence. Its timing before the election remains uncertain, but its substance strikes at core questions of national security and the rule of law. The federal January 6th case, United States versus Donald J. Trump. This indictment charges Trump with conspiring to defraud the United States and obstruct an official proceeding, the certification of the electoral vote, in his efforts to overturn the 2020 election. It is the legal system's direct reckoning with the events leading to the Capitol insurrection. The Supreme Court is considering issues of presidential immunity that have delayed the trial. This case goes to the very heart of his post-election conduct and his claims of a stolen election. The Georgia RICO case, State of Georgia versus Donald J. Trump et al. In Fulton County, Georgia, Trump and several allies face state racketeering, RICO charges, for a multi-pronged effort to overturn the state's 2020 election results. This includes the infamous phone call to Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger asking him to find enough votes. The sweeping indictment details a complex alleged conspiracy. This is a state case, meaning a president could not pardon himself if reelected. Campaigning from the courthouse. Trump has masterfully turned his court appearances into campaign events. Walking into the Manhattan courthouse, he would stop and address the television cameras, lambasting the judge and the corrupt system. These perp walk press conferences became daily political ads. He has used the trials to reinforce his core message of a two-tiered system of justice and a weaponized Department of Justice. The image of a former president sitting in a courtroom has become normalized, a jarring testament to the extraordinary nature of the times. The Retribution Agenda and Project 2025. His 2024 campaign platform is centered on the theme of retribution. He promises, if reelected, to use the power of the federal government to investigate and prosecute his political enemies. He has spoken openly about using the Justice Department to go after President Biden and his family. This represents a radical departure from American norms of justice being independent of politics. Furthermore, he is aligned with a detailed conservative blueprint known as Project 2025, crafted by the Heritage Foundation and allied groups. This plan outlines a dramatic expansion of presidential power, the dismantling of the deep state by firing tens of thousands of civil servants and replacing them with loyalists, and the implementation of sweeping conservative policies on immigration, education, and climate change. A second Trump term, his allies promise, would be far more systematic and transformative than the first. The rematch with Biden. The election is set to be a bitter rematch with President Joe Biden, offering voters a stark choice between two vastly different visions of America and two men with profound personal animosity. For Trump, the campaign is a chance to reclaim lost glory, to prove his movement is larger than the institutions that have indicted him, and to secure the power that could potentially make his legal problems disappear or be delayed. For his supporters, it is the final battle in a war for the nation's soul. For his detractors, it is an existential defense of democracy against a man they view as an aspiring autocrat. As he stands at this unique crossroads, Donald Trump embodies the deepest conflicts in contemporary America: law versus politics, truth versus power, tradition versus disruption. His life story, from Queen's developer to reality star to president to defendant, is a saga of relentless ambition and relentless controversy. The final act, whether it concludes in a return to the White House, a prison cell, or some combination of both, will be a defining moment for the country he has dominated and divided for nearly a decade. The world watches knowing that the saga of Donald Trump is far more than a personal story. It is a reflection of the turbulent era that bears his name.
As the 2024 election looms, the legacy of Donald J. Trump is not a settled historical account, but a living, breathing force that continues to reshape American politics, culture, and its very sense of identity. His impact transcends policy wins and losses. It resides in the profound transformations he catalyzed within the Republican Party, the media ecosystem, and the public's relationship with truth and institutions. Whether one views him as a necessary disruptor or a dangerous demagogue, his mark on the 21st century is indelible. The Trump Republican Party. Perhaps his most concrete legacy is the complete overhaul of the Republican Party. Before 2016, the GOP was a coalition of business conservatives, foreign policy hawks, and social conservatives with an establishment that controlled nominations and platform. Trump shattered that model. Today, the Republican Party is, in essence, the party of Trump. Its orthodoxy is defined by his instincts: skepticism of free trade and foreign alliances, a focus on immigration and cultural grievance, and a combative, anti-elite posture. Loyalty to Trump and his stolen election narrative has become a litmus test for candidates. Figures who dared to criticize him, like Liz Cheney, have been purged. The party's base is now firmly populist and nationalist, viewing the pre-Trump conservatism with disdain. This transformation is likely permanent, setting the GOP's course for a generation. The erosion of institutional trust. Trump's relentless attacks on American institutions have left a deep scar. He systematically undermined trust in the mainstream media, dismissing unfavorable reporting as fake news, the justice system, labeling investigations witch hunts, the intelligence community, the FBI, and the electoral process itself. While these institutions had their flaws and public skepticism existed before him, he weaponized and amplified that distrust to an unprecedented degree. A significant portion of the electorate now resides in separate informational realities, believing only in sources that affirm their pre-existing views. This erosion of shared facts and respect for institutional authority makes governance and national cohesion immensely more difficult. The post-truth political era. Closely linked to this is Trump's relationship with truth. His presidency was characterized by a staggering volume of false or misleading statements. But more than the sheer number, it was the brazenness and strategic utility of the lies that marked a shift. From the size of his inauguration crowd to the perfect phone call with Ukraine, facts were treated as malleable tools to shape narrative and rally supporters. The big lie about the 2020 election is the ultimate example, a falsehood repeated so often and with such conviction that it became an article of faith for millions. Despite being refuted by courts, election officials of both parties, and his own administration. He demonstrated that in the modern media landscape, objective truth could be overwhelmed by emotional assertion and tribal loyalty. The personalization of politics. Trump reduced complex governance to a personal drama. Policy was often an extension of his ego or a response to a perceived slight.
International relations became about his personal chemistry with strongmen like Vladimir Putin or Kim Jong-un. Domestic politics was framed as a battle between him and his supporters and a cabal of evil elites. This hyper-personalization shifted focus from ideas to identity, from governance to combat. Politics became more visceral, more entertaining, and more divisive. The presidency was transformed from an institution into a platform for one man's grievances and ambitions. The remaking of the judiciary. One of his most enduring lapel policy legacies is the remaking of the federal judiciary. With the help of a Republican Senate, he appointed over 230 federal judges, including 3 Supreme Court justices. This shifted the nation's highest court decisively to the right, leading to landmark decisions like the overturning of Roe v. Wade, the expansion of gun rights, and the rollback of regulatory power. For decades to come, Trump-appointed judges will rule on issues affecting every American's life, ensuring his influence persists long after his political career ends. The globalization of populism. Trump's 2016 victory was a bellwether for a global populist wave. He shared a political style and message with figures like Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil, Viktor Orban in Hungary, and populist movements across Europe. His success emboldened them, proving that anti-immigration, nationalist, and anti-globalist messages could win in established democracies. He reoriented U.S. foreign policy away from its post-Second World War role as leader of the liberal international order, embracing an America First unilateralism that delighted autocrats and dismayed allies. The long-term effects of this shift on global stability and U.S. influence are still unfolding. An unresolved story. Ultimately, Donald Trump's legacy is a story without an ending. It is still being written by voters, jurors, and history itself. The key questions remain open. Will he be re-elected, securing the power to halt his prosecutions and enact a more radical agenda? Will the legal system hold him accountable, setting a precedent that no one is above the law? Will the norms he shattered be rebuilt, or have they been permanently altered? His life, from the driven son of a Queens developer, to the flashy 80s tycoon, to the reality TV boss, to the insurgent president, to the indicted former commander-in-chief plotting a comeback, mirrors America's own journey in the early 21st century. A tale of grandiose ambition, profound disruption, deep inequality, and a struggle over what the nation is and wants to be. Donald Trump did not create the divisions in American society, but he exposed them, deepened them, and built a powerful political movement upon them. He is both a symptom and a cause of the country's tumultuous era. His legacy, therefore, is not just about one man. It is a reflection of the anxieties, frustrations, and changing identity of a superpower navigating a new century. Whether his chapter concludes in triumph or disgrace, the America that emerges will be, in no small part, the America he helped to make.